What's going on YouTube? This is a video. This is a real serious video for me to put out there for those who have heard God's voice, or for those who have been called to do something prominent, even if that thing of prominence is something menial and it doesn't mean much to you in your eyes. This message is for those who need a little bit of a push. On June 10th, 2013, I was baptized. Prior to that, I was reading the Bible a lot. Although I was fighting my own sin, my addictions, and the main addiction I was struggling with was alcoholism. I was a drunkard, so I just, for the life of me, couldn't, I wanted to stop that. And, I'm glad to say, 3 years later I have, but that's neither here nor there. Not 3 years later, but 2 years ago. 3 years will be a day after my birthday, but again, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, June 10th, I was baptized, and I bring my baptism up because right after I was baptized, I ran outside. I was supposed to rejoice, but I ran outside and smoked a cigarette. It was a scary moment for me, because I'm like, I don't want to be in front of all these people, but I was glad that I did it in front of everybody, because the people who all knew me, which was the homeless population, albeit I wasn't homeless at that time. You see what I'm saying? I was homeless prior, so the homeless population knew me. But the church I was attending, specifically deals with the homeless crowd. Chosen 300 Ministries. And, yeah, I ran outside, smoked a cigarette, man. Not to say that the baptism wasn't effective, but it wasn't. Not to say that the man who baptized me was the cause, but it was really me, because a baptism is a renewal of your faith, of your being, of your mind. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to give you, a bit of encouragement to walk on the right path, But fast forward from that, I'm gonna stay on that day, I'm sorry, but even after the cigarette, I went home and me and my brother downed the whole bottle of E&J. It was a whole gallon. We was losing it. The rest of the day I passed out, and we called it celebrating the fact that I was baptized, but that ain't how you supposed to do it. That's just not. Anyway, it's a few years, it's the same year I wound up, going to jail that July. Spent the whole month in there, got out August, stayed with my grandmother, September, got sick of her, so I left in maybe the beginning of November. Now, it wasn't my grandmother's fault that I was sick of her. I was sick of her because I didn't want to hear her mouth about me drinking. Now, obviously, when you're in that state of mind, you don't want to hear your own mother's mouth. So, it is what it is. But so I left her house, and I left, and I said, you know what? I'd rather be homeless. I'd rather be on the streets trying to figure it out on my own, because I knew in my heart and in my mind I wanted to quit. That's one of the main reasons I started my search for God, because I knew I was in too deep with this alcoholism. So I left, and about maybe mid-November, it was about time for me to get into a shelter. I was on the streets all that time. Actually, I was on the streets for maybe the month of October, and Yeah, because I remember, matter of fact, I left in October, and I left the shelter in early November. That's what happened. But because I wanted to still party, I got sick of coming in 9 p.m. and, I'm 26, 25 at the time. I'm like, who does that as a 25-year-old go to shelters? Not understanding that this is the situation that I put myself into. I just wanted to drink. One specific night, I had a wild night of partying, just real night. Wild, it was just really crazy. Like, I'm not even going to talk about it, but it was extremely crazy. The following day, I was so hungover. I was like, you know what? And that night that I had that wild night was on a Thursday, and that Friday I was like, man, there's no way in hell I'm going to survive this weekend. As dried out as I was from all the alcohol, and I had money left to go have me another wild night. So I know I'm like, man, it's getting cold. It's cold as hell out here. I do not need to have another wild night, broken down, drunk somewhere, and it's freezing out here. So I said, you know what? Let me get my ass up and go to this shelter. I went to 802 Broad Street here in Philadelphia, and I was there at 7 a.m. First man at the door. I was the first guy there. I think that's when they opened the doors, is at 7 o'clock. If I'm not mistaken, it's at 8. So don't quote me on the specific time. I just know that I was the first man there when the doors opened. Funny thing too, because as the doors opened, I walked in. A few people walked in behind me. So thank God. I'm like, man, I'm about to get seen first, and I didn't get seen first. But the way the setup was, as soon as you walk in, there was a security guard with a chair and his desk on the right. He checks you. And on the left, there was all the rows of seats, maybe 14 rows, and maybe 8 to 10 out. So it was a little walkway on the right side. But in front of all those chairs was where the receptionist sat at. And, that's where you sign in your name so that they can know who you are and how, they'll call you accordingly, right? And the first guy on that list, very first guy, how is it that they skipped past me this many times? Now, I looked at this opportunity as me getting, some time to sleep, because usually they take maybe 30 minutes to call you. Don't know why, but it just takes a long time for them to call you. But I said, you know what, let me get 30 minutes of sleep. I lay my head down on the left side, on the wall, because the chair was coming from the left side on over. So I'm sitting there, and time just flying. And I wake up thinking it was 30 minutes. Look at my my phone. I had a couple phones, and the crazy thing is that maybe it was 9:30 at this point. There's a few guys sitting in there, maybe about 10, 12 people sitting in there. So I'm like, all right, man, they're going to call me soon. I go back to sleep. I was awake enough to where I was just resting my head on the wall. So really, I had a hangover. That's all I really wanted, to get rid of the hangover. And, just to keep my eyes closed so the light wouldn't, burn my, my eyes and hurt my head. But I was awake enough to where if someone called me, I would hear them. Go back to sleep. I get back up 12:30 now. It's 12:30. So I look behind me and I look next to me, and, behind me and in front of me. No one is there except the security guard in the far back right. And, looking for the receptionist in front of me, she's noting there was 3 of them up there, and all 3 of them were gone. And I asked the security guard, I'm like, yo, what happened to everybody? Where's they at? He said to me, they went out on lunch. And I'm like, well, what sense does that make? You see what I'm saying? I'm like, I was the first guy in here. Said, man, I can't help you with that. They're on lunch. You take that up with them when they return. I said, whatever. Thank you. I said, I said thank you to the guy, but I was thinking in my head, like, whatever, man. That don't make sense for me to still be sitting here. Now, honestly, it could make sense because they could have called my name and I didn't hear them. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, obviously I've reasoned with it now, but that wasn't even the case. They didn't call me. So I go back to sleep, right? I was about to. I said, you know what? I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to just go back to sleep. Mind you, at this point, it's 12:30. So I lay my head back down on the left side, and all of a sudden my ear gets this like sucking feeling. It's like a suction feeling from inside of my from the outside of my ear to the inside, to the point it was on both sides, like both ears were sucking onto each other type of deal, right? You know how you get that little itch in your ear and you start doing that noise and you start pulling at your ear and all of that. Well, I started doing that. I'm thinking, my ear just clogged, and it was my left ear. So I'm sitting there yanking at it nonstop, and I'm trying to dig the wax out of it. And I'm sitting there, what the hell's wrong with me? And I'm making all that noise. And a security guard looking at me like, you all right over there? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm all right. My ear just clogged up a little bit, and I'm still making a noise. And I'm just trying to get the wax out my ear. And that's when I heard a voice. And mind you, nobody was in there but me and the security guard. And if there were more people in, there were the actual caseworkers, and that was in the far back. That was, there was like a completely different, part of the building that was at, and me and the security guard was the only two brothers that were out there in the front. There were no women, there were no children, there were no other men out there. It was just me and this other brother. The voice, came out of my left ear, and I remember it distinctly. I'll never forget it, man. It said, "Follow me to the light." I'm sitting there like, whoa, what you just say, dog? I'm sitting there thinking, I'm scraping in my ear still, and I'm scratching at it. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why is my ear like this? You know how you get irritated because you can't unpop it? Like, it's like you need to pop the ear, and you can't. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So I'm looking over at the security guard. I'm like, yo, what you say, dog? Like, dog, I'm saying, what did you just say? Like, he was like, man, I ain't say nothing to you. Because he was enjoying his lunch at his post, as a matter of fact. He was eating. So I'm like, I wouldn't want nobody bothering me while I'm eating either. And, especially some homeless dude, that probably was out drinking all night. And I smelled like alcohol. I'm not one of them guys that don't, like to talk to the homeless. I'm from that, world. So I make sure I make time for them, now, obviously. But yeah, he responded to me a bit annoyed, like, man, I ain't talking to you, man. What are you talking about? I was like, my fault, man, my fault. So I'm focusing on both my ears again, especially this left one. I'm sitting there clogging at him, like, what is wrong with my ear? What is up with my ear? Like, I said, God, was that you? I said, what was that? What you just say? The voice said, follow me to the light. It said it in that voice. It said it in that specific tone, that pitch, because I'm a pretty loud guy, and I'm working on my, my voice control. So, but this specific voice, I said, man, this is crazy. Ain't nobody in here. I'm looking behind me. The chair's behind me. I'm looking on the floor to see if somebody was playing with me, because I'm ready to go off at this point because my ears are still clogged, like unrelentless. They're like a relentless, it was unreal. It was crazy because the clogging was so deep. I'm sitting there really trying to scrape my ears at this point. I said, God, if that was you, say it one more time because this is crazy. The voice said it one more time. Follow me to the light. My ears unclogged, and, just like that after the voice went away. And now I was tripping out. Now, at this point, I was tripping because I'm like, wait a minute. I think I might have just heard God's voice, You see what I'm saying? So, obviously, I told all my elders, I told my old heads, and a few people thought I was crazy, obviously, but that's understood because who the hell hears crazy, voices unless you're crazy or unless you're, a true, man of God or a woman of God. And even in those days, God only spoke to his people. You see what I'm saying? Or, but anyway, The point of this video was to let y'all know that I'm basically Jonah. And that I didn't follow what he said. I'm still an unrighteous man, you know. I still lie, you know. I still fornicate. I still lust uncontrollably. I'm a young man, 28 years of age, and yet I look as if I've had a lot of wear and tear on me. And I have. And it was none done by the world, because I was a friend of the world. You know, the scripture says that if you're a friend of the world, you'll be an enemy to our Creator. And that's the truth, man. And I really put myself through a lot of mental strain, and, you know, dealing with the world, trying to be a part of the world. This message is for you who have moms telling you what to do, dads telling you what to do. The voice of God and the voice is the voice of reason. If your parents are telling you to quit drinking, quit drinking. If it's that simple, it's that simple, and I understand how hard it is. But just know that if he speaks to you directly and you don't do what he says, these scars in my teeth being messed up are just but a small amount of what he could do to you and what you will do to you. I haven't listened to that voice at all for the past 3 years. Believe me, I've done my part, you know, as far as the gift that I've been given. Obviously, the gift that God gave me is a gift that will always be able to flourish until he takes it from me. You know, you see what I'm saying? I have a way of being able to speak with people, reason, and sympathize with people. You know, you see what I'm saying? I have a gift to be able to give somebody a bit of advice that I myself may never have even thought of. It just comes to me. Not that psychologically sound, but I have a great deal of logical explanations and to some degree. And, you know, that's something, you know, I have a great deal of understanding as well when it comes to knowing how to get out of certain situations. And the funny thing is, I can help all these people who talk to me and ask me for advice. But I can't even fix myself. Goes to the saying, how can you help anybody if you ain't helping yourself? And it's true. But to this day, I still have, you know, people asking me questions and really wanting to pick my brain. And it's pretty, I find it to be, you know, it's a great deal of respect. But that's not what this video is about. It's about pushing those to do what they're called to do. I literally, you know, disobeyed him, you know, because I heard that voice, and that very day I heard his voice, I had another wild night. Oh, I heard God's voice. I heard God's voice. What did I do? I took the rest of that money and had a wild night. Wild weekend. It's been a wild 3 years. June 10th will be 3 years. So if you hear this message, please don't take this message as me trying to, you know, BS you. Please don't take this message as me being some overly righteous Christian who doesn't understand logic or the fact that, you know, some things like that may not happen to, you know, to the majority. So therefore it's hard to believe. I get that. But just take this as a message, as somebody who's trying to help you and inform you that you have to do what you're called to do. Once he told you to do once he gave you a set of instructions, once you get them instructions, please do it. It's a lot more about me that many people just don't know. My family, my friends, and I'm tormented by this. All because I didn't pay attention and follow what I was told to do. I'm trying to claw my way back now. So, I mean, people pray for me, and I will pray for you. You know, I really will. You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a part of anybody's church because, again, I don't agree with the doctrine in most of these churches. So I'm not asking for you to give me some sort of sermon, because I understand I understand biblical Jesus. I know who that guy was, and it's not who a lot of these Christian churches preach about. So I'm not looking for your indoctrination. My message is simply do as you are told to do by God. So you don't have to look like a rundown, you know, a broken up 28-year-old man with missing teeth. This message is serious, and I hope it really hits somebody and it makes them move. I don't know you, but this is the very message I would give my own brother. Do as you told. Especially when God tells you. And he'll tell you, be it audibly or through your family or through somebody you don't even like. But if it's a message that's clear, do as you are told, or you will suffer. Thanks for listening, y'all.